All right, so today we're diving deep into advanced first aid, exploring the fascinating world of the human body, especially in those emergency situations.
Right. And I think for anyone who's ever been in a situation or even just, thought about what they would do, understanding how your body reacts to trauma, that can be pretty crucial.
Totally. And today we're focusing on how all those amazing systems inside us are connected. Kind of like, a finely tuned machine, each part playing its role, but all working together.
And that interconnectedness, that's key when you're talking about advanced first aid. Because for someone responding to an emergency, uh, knowing how what seems like an isolated injury
Right.
can actually impact multiple systems, that can totally change how they approach the situation.
Yeah, it's like, if you see one domino fall,
Hmm.
the rest are already in motion.
Exactly. So let's start with the integumentary system, your skin, hair, and nails. Now, most people, when they think about that system, they think protection, right?
Right. It's our first line of defense.
And that's true, but it's so much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always fascinated by how our skin helps regulate temperature, too. Like, think about sweating when you're hot or, getting goosebumps when you're cold. It's all connected.
And that temperature regulation, that's vital in emergencies. Say someone's in shock, right? Their skin goes pale and clammy. That observation can tell a responder so much about what's happening internally.
Wow, so even just looking at the skin, it's like the body's sending out these signals. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Speaking of complex systems, let's talk about the muscular system. I mean, it's mind-blowing how many muscles we have all working together to let us move with such precision.
Right. And don't forget about the different types of muscles, too. You've got your skeletal muscles for voluntary movement, like when you decide to pick something up. Then you've got smooth muscles working behind the scenes in your organs. And, of course, the cardiac muscle keeping your heart pumping. They all play a part.
It really is incredible how they all work together, like those smooth muscles keeping things moving even when we're not thinking about it. But what happens in an emergency situation, like let's say a car accident? Even if there's no broken bone, muscle damage could be a huge factor, right?
Oh, absolutely. Knowing about the muscular system, that helps responders assess how bad any internal injuries might be. Because those injuries, they might not be visible, but they can be just as serious.
That's a good point. You don't always see the damage right away. And that makes me think about the skeletal system. We might think of bones as, kind of simple, but it's way more than just a framework.
Right. It's about protecting those vital organs, helping us move, and even, with bone marrow playing a role in blood cell production.
It's amazing how much one system does.
Exactly. And that's why in first aid, stabilizing fractures is crucial, of course. But you also have to be aware of the possibility of internal bleeding from the bone marrow. It adds another layer of complexity to what might seem like a simple skeletal injury.
Right. It's not just about the bone itself. That makes me think about those crime shows where they say blunt force trauma. Now it makes more sense.
Okay, moving on to one of the most fascinating systems, the nervous system. I mean, it's like the control center for the whole body.
It really is. Think about it. The nervous system, it manages everything. Voluntary movements, involuntary reflexes, sensory perception, even maintaining that delicate balance we call homeostasis. It's incredibly fast and intricate.
Yeah, the speed of nerve impulses is just astonishing. And the complexity of the brain, it's mind-boggling. That's why protecting the head and spine in any emergency, that's absolutely critical.
No doubt about it. Think about it. Your nervous system controls your breathing, your heart rate. So in a trauma situation, assessing someone's neurological function, that can be the difference between life and death. It's amazing how one system can have such a big impact on everything else. And speaking of systems that control a lot, let's talk about the endocrine system. With all its hormones, it's like a messaging system for the whole body.
Oh yeah, hormones are powerful messengers. They regulate growth and development. They influence our metabolism and energy levels. And they even, orchestrate our response to stress. You really can't underestimate their impact.
It's like, think about the adrenaline rush you get in a stressful situation. It's like our body's own superpower.
Yeah.
But how does all this tie into advanced first aid?
Well, if you understand how hormones affect things like blood pressure and heart rate, you can anticipate the body's reactions to trauma. For example, knowing how the endocrine system responds to shock. That's crucial for effective treatment.
So it's not just about addressing the immediate injury, but understanding the whole body response. It's a lot to take in, but it's fascinating. Now let's talk about the heart of the matter. Literally, the cardiovascular system. It's like the engine that keeps everything running.
It truly is, delivering oxygen and nutrients to every cell in our body, while removing waste products. It's a continuous loop, with the heart as the central pump, and this vast network of blood vessels.
I remember learning about capillaries in school, those tiny blood vessels where the actual exchange of oxygen and nutrients and waste happens. It's amazing to think about that happening constantly on such a microscopic level. But what happens when something goes wrong with that system, like internal bleeding, for example?
That's a critical situation because internal bleeding, it disrupts the flow of the entire system. And since the cardiovascular system is responsible for maintaining blood pressure, significant blood loss can be, life-threatening.
That's a good reminder that even injuries that seem minor on the surface, if they involve internal bleeding, they can have really serious consequences. Now, let's talk about a system we often don't think about, the lymphatic system. It's like our body's own cleanup crew.
It's a silent worker, but vital. It helps maintain fluid balance, fights infection, removes waste products. We're talking about a complex network of lymph nodes, vessels, organs like the spleen and thymus.
It's fascinating how it works like a one-way system, constantly filtering, protecting us from all those harmful invaders. But how does knowing about this system help in an emergency?
Well, think about open wounds, potential infections. Understanding how the lymphatic system contributes to the immune response, that can guide a responder's actions to, minimize the risk of complications.
So it's about protecting the body's natural defenses. Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about a system we literally can't live without, the respiratory system. It's more than just breathing, right? It's about getting that vital oxygen to all our cells.
Absolutely. It's all about gas exchange. We take in oxygen, we expel carbon dioxide. It's fundamental for, cellular respiration, energy production.
It's incredible how efficient our lungs are, extracting oxygen from the air, transferring it into our bloodstream. But what happens in an emergency when that process is disrupted?
That's where airway management becomes crucial. Ensuring a clear airway, that allows the respiratory system to function properly, to deliver that oxygen to the body. It's often the first and most important step in stabilizing a patient.
Right. It's like the foundation for everything else. Without oxygen, nothing else really matters. Okay, let's move on to another fundamental process, the digestive system. Breaking down food, absorbing nutrients, giving us the energy we need.
It's a complex process, for sure. We're talking about both mechanical and chemical breakdown as food moves through the digestive tract. Mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestines, even organs like the liver, pancreas, gallbladder.
And let's not forget the gut microbiome, all those beneficial bacteria that play a role in our overall health. But how does understanding the digestive system relate to advanced first aid?
Well, think about situations with vomiting or diarrhea. Assessing fluid loss becomes crucial in those cases. Because the digestive system is so important for hydration, dehydration can really impact a patient's condition.
Right, so even those digestive issues that might seem simple at first, in an emergency, they can become serious problems. All right, now let's talk about another system we often don't think about until there's a problem, the urinary system.
Yeah, it might seem simple, but it's vital for maintaining the body's chemical balance. It filters waste products from the blood, regulates fluid and electrolyte levels, even helps control blood pressure.
It's not just about getting rid of waste, it's about fine-tuning our internal environment. And lastly, we have the reproductive system.
Right. And while it's obviously crucial for, the continuation of our species, in the context of advanced first aid, our focus here is on how all these systems are interconnected.
And that understanding, that's really key for responding effectively in an emergency. It's not just about treating the visible injury. It's about recognizing how that injury might be affecting all these other systems.
Exactly. And that's what makes advanced first aid so challenging and so fascinating.
This has been an amazing journey so far.
Yeah, it really is incredible, isn't it? Like all these systems working together. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance, And if one dancer stumbles, the whole performance can be affected.
That's a great analogy. And that's exactly why understanding these intricate steps is so important for advanced first aid, especially for anyone who might be, the first on the scene in an emergency.
Right. It's about being prepared, knowing what to look for, and understanding how those seemingly small observations, they can actually point to much bigger issues.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember, this is a deep dive. We're exploring these concepts.
Always defer to qualified medical professionals and official guidelines. Local practices can vary too. So make sure you're up to date on the latest recommendations in your area.
Do your research, folks. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new and that you'll continue to explore, the wonders of the human body.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to helping ourselves and others in those, times of need.
Yeah, absolutely. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into all sorts of fascinating topics.
And leave a comment below. We love hearing from you. What surprised you? What resonated with you? Let's keep the conversation going.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.